Okay, guys, I'm here just in the nick of time. We got New York and everything else tonight. Yeah, I think I just got here just in the nick of time. Like we got seven primaries in New York, and polls have just closed in New York. Let me do. We got the 10th, the 7th, the 12th, the 13th, the 15th, the 17th, the 21st, and a couple of other incumbents that might be in somewhat danger but are not really in main danger. Polls are closed in New York. Let's see here. The main races, we got two open seats, the 12th and the 7th, and two incumbents that are endangered. The 10th in Dan Goldman, and the 13th in Adriano Espaillat. Uh, we got the 15th, which is Richie Torres. He may be in some trouble. The 17th is a race to see who takes on Mike Lawler in probably one of the most competitive districts in the general election. And then we got a Republican primary in the 21st of New York to see who replaces Elise Stefanik in the in her northern New York district, which goes from the Canadian border to Albany out to the west. So interesting night. Uh, and thank you for joining me here. So everything's just so let's go. Let's get going here. The let's get this show on the road. All right. So this is the seventh district. This is to replace Nydia Velasquez. It's Antonio Reynoso and Claire Valdez. Both are pretty progressive. Valdez is endorsed by Zora Manam, the mayor of New York. Valdez is endorsed by Mamdani, the mayor of New York. Reynoso is endorsed by, and there we go. And Valdez starts off with a very early lead. It's 52 to 39 early here in the race between Valdez and Reynoso. Tonight is a very big night for Zora Manami to see how, about 6 months into his tenure, how influential is he in New York? And then his best district from the Democratic primary uh, last June, Valdez is leading in Queens. Reynoso leading in Brooklyn, but Reynoso has a smaller lead in Brooklyn than what Valdez has in Queens. Valdez is actually destroying Reynoso in Queens. For the Mondani wing of the Democratic Party, incredible start for her, for Valdez. So incredible start for Claire Valdez. Oh my goodness. This is even worse for the non Hondami lane. As expected though, Dan Goldman is getting blown out of proportion. And there we go. Immediately we got a call. Glad Winder has taken down Dan Goldman. Wow. AP did not hesitate on that one. Brad Rander has just won this race. Wow. Okay, so incumbent in New York 10, Dan Goldman has gone down to defeat to Brad Lander in New York 10th District. That's another incumbent Democrat down. And this first win for the Mondani endorsed candidates. Valdez is in good position. Uh, I have yet to get to the 13th, but I will get there shortly. But good big win for Lander. He did well in this district in the Democratic primary a year ago for mayor. He obviously had an alliance with Zoran Mondani, and yet it is a but he decided to challenge Goldman, who was showing in every poll. He was getting out fundraised, and a big win for Brad Lander. He wins easily. So the AP has called it for Brad Lander. All right, let's go over to the 12. All right, so this one has been crazy. We got this is the open seat from Nat. This is the open Jerry Nadler seat. The top four candidates this year has been Lasher, Boris, Schlossberg, and Conway. Schlossberg is the grandson of the only grandson of Jack Kennedy, the 35th president of the United States. But he's in a distant third. He ain't going to win this one. It's going to be Lasher and Boris. And then this is going to be close. This is a close one here. Isperlat and Dariza Avila Xavier. It's 30 votes. Isperlat is cruising in the Bronx. Manhattan, uh, DAC is leading by only 4. She probably needed to do a little bit better than that there in Manhattan. The good result for Ispalat in the Bronx. Meanwhile, Witchy Torres, people said that he might be in some trouble. He's cruising right now. We'll keep an eye on it, but he's cruising right now. We'll see if he gets under like 60. All right. But that was a great start to the night for Zoran Mondani. And Reynoso and Valdez just gained a little bit more vote here. All right, so for context here, so Goldman is the second incumbent to go down to defeat this Stagel that was not an incumbent v incumbent primary. So right now we're watching. So we got an update here in the 10th of. This is not the 10th. This is the 12th of New York. Lasher leads by about 7 points. Oh man, it's now 30. It's gonna be kind of close here in the 12th. Let's go back to Valdez Reynoso. Valdez continues to gain uh, some votes here. Valdez leads 55-35. But yeah, here we go. That is a good start for Zoran Mandami. He will most likely go at least get two of his candidates across. His ever is pretty much locked in that he had actually just took the lead. But wow, DAC has taken the lead. She has a 5 point lead in Manhattan, but she's still getting whomped in the Bronx. Okay, let's head back to. All right, DAC expands her lead to 6 in Manhattan. That's why her lead is now over a point. Just barely over a point, but it's over a point. I say Manhattan is probably going to be producing a ton more. Yeah, we're about halfway done in Manhattan. Ooh. The Bronx doesn't have much votes, so let's do some math here. Um, let's quickly do some math here. So Ispalat is up 60-30. Let's just say Ispalat is up to the wall. So let's just say Ispalat gets 2,500 and DAC gets 1,500. From let's say that's where uh that's how let's say that's let's say it's the end of the day Bronx get those 2,700 to 1,500 in favor of Ispalat. That'll be a gain of 1,200. That would be enough if it comes all at once to barely pass a DAC because he only has a 600 vote lead, so he would be up by 600 votes. But if hold on, we got a projection. Okay, so Mondami will go 2 for 2 so far. The Associated Press has called Claire Valdez the winner in the 7th District of New York. So that's a wow. Okay. So let's go right back to the 13th from New York, where we just got more results, and where Manhattan gets very good for DAC. She now she leads by still around 600 votes in the whole district, but this is starting to looking like a very great night for the mayor of New York. All right, folks, Dante is here, the author of the Tuning Out the Static blog on Substack. All right, Dante, welcome back.
Hey, what's up, Andy? Good to be back.
All right, so we got some results here. We got a very close race here in New York's 13. What's going on here?
Yeah, so we have an incredibly tight race here in New York 13th District. I don't know if you've explained, gone over much of the context in this seat, but for those who aren't aware, uh, Adriano Espialot running for, is this his sixth term, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe I'm mistaken. I think he was elected back in 2016. So his sixth term, uh, chair of the Hispanic Caucus in Congress, facing a very, very serious challenge right now from Daria Litza Avila Chevalier. I'm sorry if I butchered her name. He was trailing very narrowly in the early vote, came back to take a slight lead. Now Avila Chevalier is ahead once again. This is looking like it's going to be a close finish. There's still a lot of vote left in the Bronx, where Espialot is dominating. Still a lot of vote left in Manhattan, where Chevalier has a narrow lead. So right now, she leads by under 1,000 votes district wide. I actually think her margin's a little, I think maybe a little over 500 right now. Very, very close race. We expected him to do quite well with the E-Day votes. Hasn't done maybe quite as well as he's needed to so far. So we're going to see. There's if Espilat does get some better results than the remaining E-Day votes, there's a very good chance this is a race that we don't see called tonight. This one looks like it's going to be very, very tight. Espilat's still very much alive here, but DAC, I'm going to call her that just because I feel bad butchering her name, pronunciation of her name. DAC has a very real shot here.
Yeah, we just got a vote drop right before you came on from the Bronx, and it did not do as much as he wanted to cut into that lead. It only cut in by about 30 votes.
Yeah, so DAC leads Espialat by 652 votes. So very tight. The other thing we'll be watching is if Espialat can narrow down now. But if he can do well in the E-Day there and cut that down a bit, that would go a long way towards helping him survive. But he's clearly in a lot of trouble. We've got a couple other candidates taking some vote here, including Oscar Romero Jr., who has about 3.6%. So very tight race. Still a number of votes to go, but we'll see.
Before you came on, we had two other races that we were watching very closely. We had New York 7 and New York 10. The other races where the mayor of New York, Zoran Mandami, has put his endorsement into. And let's go over that right quick, starting with the one where an incumbent go down, Dan Goldman.
Yeah. So Dan Goldman, the third incumbent Democrat to lose a primary this year, I believe. It's Al Green. Who's the second one that I'm missing?
It's Al Green and Julie Johnson.
I'd say this is the
And we
closest
may
thing we've had
be
to.
in.
Wow. Currently trailing by over
We just
30
got some
points.
vote. Yeah, wow.
So this is maybe
He's
the
losing
purest.
2-1 with 80% in.
And I'm talking about this race going into today. I think it become a foregone conclusion that Brad Lander was going to win this seat. But I was seeing some people, debate, okay, what's a good result for Zoran in a seat that he's so clearly going to get his ally elected in? And there was a general consensus that if Lander wins by 25 to 30 points in that range, that would be considered a great result for Zoran. And some people were saying, turnout's been a little screwy. We don't really know. Incumbency advantage can be powerful. We don't know that Lander's going to get that big margin. He still could slip a bit, but I don't think he's going to slip all the way below 25 points. And he's been gaining. Yeah, he's up by over 32 points now. He's look at the if you just can go over the Brooklyn results there. I mean, look at that margin in Brooklyn for Lander. That is
Yeah,
ridiculous. He's up by nearly 50 points in Brooklyn.
yeah. This is 20,000 vote lead, and it seems like he may be gaining more there. We got a lot more votes left in Brooklyn. Still, we got about 10,000 votes left. There's a chance he may grow that lead to about 25,000 by the end of the night. And then in Manhattan, he's only throwing by 10, but there's a chance that he may get above 10 points in Manhattan as well. It's just an
Well,
all
and
out disaster for Goldman.
we thought Goldman would be favored. There were the people who, yeah, Manhattan was like, if Goldman was going to somehow make this close, which no one, I think, any expected him to win. But Goldman was absolutely like Manhattan was he had to win. So when you're looking at him getting destroyed, it's not really shocking with he's getting destroyed losing Manhattan. Yeah, we should maybe talk a bit about NY12 here because I feel like it's gone under the radar.
Yeah, it's gotten under the radar, but it's been so chaotic as well. We had so many personalities in that race, and it's only
Yeah,
halfway in, so let's talk about it.
yeah. So this is the race. This is actually people may not recognize this race because of the lack of Zoran involvement. He didn't endorse this race, but he does live in this district as the mayor, and this is actually Jerry Nadler's old seat. Um, Jerry Nadler leaving office after over 30 years as one of the most powerful Democrats in New York. Many people may remember him from his role in Trump's first term as I believe he was chair of the House Judiciary Committee at the time.
Yes,
And
he
yeah,
was.
high celebrity. Good Lord, George Conway is putting up a really bad performance. Yeah, so a lot of celebrity in this race, as Andy mentioned. Obviously, Jack Schlossberg, the grandson of President Kennedy, George Conway, the famous anti Trump lawyer and the ex husband of Kellyanne Conway. But this really came down between two candidates in the end, two state assemblymen, Michael Lasher, who is Nadler's handpicked successor, and Alex Borez. And a lot of this came down to debate about AI regulation. There was a lot of heavy spending. Uh, Against Alex Borez by AI pro AI groups, and pro AI groups have been a big deal in the Democratic Party. There was a lot of money coming into the seat. I mean, nearly $30 million coming in for the seat from outside groups. Boris has staked a lot of his campaign on AI. Now he's also gotten like some backing from technology groups, but So a lot of this has been about the issue of AI. I think it would be fair to say that this is the first race in the country that has been fought on the issue of artificial intelligence. None this Many of the New York races this year have been about Israel, Palestine, immigration, etc. But none of these candidates are are considered particular critics of Israel. None of them have endorsed the Block the Bombs Act, for example. So this really came down to the AI fight. Now, 82% of the vote in. Alex Boris is trailing by 4. He's cut this margin down by Lasher a little, but I don't know that he's going quite high enough yet.
And as we just saw there for that recent result, Conley lost ground again. Insanely weak performance by a guy who's been so out there against the president of the United States, who his ex-wife was. He was still married to Kellyanne during the 1.0 days, I believe. I believe they didn't get divorced till closer to the pandemic, if I am not mistaken. But yeah,
Yeah,
it is a very embarrassing performance for the guy who actually is a part who was a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, who played a big role in
oh, we just well,
2020.
hold up. Sorry, Andy. We just got results out of NY13, and DAC has let his lead has grown to 889 votes.
So we just got back from Manhattan, I believe.
Let's look.
Yep, there it is. That's Manhattan. Her lead has grown to 7 points.
It was a batch from both, actually. The Bronx came in, and actually, Espilot's lead, I think. Oh, you know what? His lead decreased a little bit in the Bronx.
Oh wow, that's
Just by a
not
little bit,
good
but
for
still.
him if he's losing ground. And that's not good if he's losing for him if he's
Yeah, he
losing
needs to be
ground in
gaining
the
there to.
Bronx.
Well, because so many more of the votes.
I was doing the math earlier from in the Bronx, and if everything went the way it was going, 2-1, I put 2-1. He would only be leading in. We had gotten nothing else from Manhattan. He would only be leading by 600 votes. So now that he's losing ground there, it's going to be tough to find. There's only 1,400 votes. Yeah, there's not much left there. Maybe he get like 500 votes or so in the Bronx. So it's going to come down to how good is his batches in Manhattan.
I will say that so far his the E-Day is not helping him. I mean, it's helping him, but he hasn't gained from it like the level we need. Then that could change, but we'll see.
And another race we are talking about is the 7th district. It's the battle of left versus the lefter, is what the New York Times had there. Both of these guys are uh, pretty much in the realm of progressive, but Valdez is more to the left than Reynoso, endorsed for Zoran, and she wins big tonight here. It's not even close.
Yes, this is possibly the most shocking result of the night. I think most people agreed that this was a toss-up going into it. Well, if she pulls it off, a lot of the coverage on tonight will be on DAC beating an incumbent Democrat coming out of nowhere late, and that's totally fair. But I think most people agreed going into tonight that NY13 was pretty much a toss-up. She's not really. If you're a political nerd, DAC has not really come out of nowhere in these last couple of weeks. This is shocking. A lot of people, this is an interesting race. So Nydia Velazquez, incumbent Congresswoman, La Luchadora, first Puerto Rican woman elected to Congress, and also the Brooklyn Borough president. He's losing this portion of Brooklyn right now, by the way. He's losing their 56-40, which is stunning. She endorses Antonio Reynoso, the mayor, who is an ally of Velasquez. She was one of his first members. She was one of the first members of Congress to endorse Zoran. Antonio Reynoso actually endorsed Zoran in that primary for mayor. So two allies of Zoran. He foregoes both of them to back Claire Valdez, a state assemblywoman who was one of his, who was I think maybe his first general like elected supporter in any office. And it became the battle of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists, versus the Working Families Party, the WFP, kind of the socialists versus the progressives, if you will. And this got really heated. This got really emotional because these are two progressive parties in New York that have kind of grown up side by side, that have worked together in a lot of cases. We've seen them in NY10 largely put aside their differences to support Lander, who is more aligned with the WFP than the DSA, but the DSA opted not to run a candidate in NY10. Even to some extent, NY13, the WFP has not supported DAC, but they did refuse to be a very tight race. The only public poll of this race showed Valdez up by just 2 points. That was about a month ago in Emerson. That was a lot of undecideds, but still, Zoran Mamdani was a barnstorm level going in this weekend. I don't know if you saw any of the clips online, but he was all over this seat. This is what we know. This district takes up a lot of what we know as the commie corridor, which is a bunch of young areas in, I believe, primarily Brooklyn and also some areas in Queens. I'd have to look into that. That has
Dante, I have
were
to interrupt you. We got a vote drop in the 13th.
oh, what's
DAC
what?
expanded her lead again. She
Oh my
has now a
goodness.
2 point lead. She has now a 2 point lead, and now it's over 1,000 vote lead. So Zara Rajavi may go perfect tonight, which is a big win for him.
Yeah, I mean this would be an impressive upset. Now, we'll note that DAC seemed to have some chances, seemed to be like growing as time went on. There were more and more talk that she might have a chance at winning this, kind of behind the scenes. And you do wonder if any of these alternative candidates, because one of them is currently getting 3.6% of the vote, hurt Espialot a little bit, but certainly could be a major, major win for the left here tonight if they can put it home in this one. Uh, Looking quickly at NY 10. Well, Dan Goldman has crawled back a little bit actually in the most recent results, mostly because he's gained a little bit in Brooklyn, but he's still down by about 32 points. It had gotten all the way down to like
Yeah,
34
and
though.
he's
So
losing. Yeah, he's
yeah,
losing
he's
Brooklyn
actually
by it's like it's on margins in Brooklyn against him
he's
right
losing
now. It's
Brooklyn
not
70.
correct.
Let's put
It's
it this way.
73-27.
Yeah, let's put it this way. It's 73 to 27, and that's actually better than what it was a few minutes ago. Like
Like
that 73
this,
27 is like an upgrade for
I don't know how much embarrassing it can get for a House incumbent to lose like that.
DAC is now leading by about 1,300 votes. She is on the verge of I think pulling out this out. So obviously, going to be a lot of discussion about what this means for Zoran Mamdani for the DSA, but uh, we'll see. Still a few votes to be counted. Still a bit of an opportunity. Still definitely an opportunity for Espilat to come back, even if he is an underdog at this point. But certainly, and we're going to have to look. We haven't even looked at the state legislature results yet. But certainly hard to argue that this was not a huge night for the mayor of New York City. His political rising star is only going to increase after this. He got a shockingly huge win in the New York 7th for his declared candidate in what seemed like a toss-up race. By all means, Brad Lander, I think everyone expected Brad Lander to win by a ton, but Brad Lander is winning by, I think, about as much as I could have imagined him winning by. I mean, we everyone talked about the upper kind of movement for him being 30 points, but it looks like he's going to win by more than 30 points at this point in the night. And of course, New York 13, where it looks like he might end up taking down two incumbents tonight.
And this is like, I don't for people who don't understand, Zero Madami, I think lost the 13th, I believe, in
No, he
25.
won it, but he won it. He did win it.
Oh,
It was close, but he did win it.
but yeah, huge win for his political capital. 6 months in is this big, and we just got another batch of votes, and I think she just gained again. Yes, she did. She's up by 3 points. I think we just got a dagger drop here.
That's gonna be tough. And Lander also gained. Actually, Valdez was the only one who lost of the progressives who lost. Also in NY12, the other race that has not been called, Lasher hanging on to a 4 point lead. It's close, but I just have not seen enough gain for Borez. He cut it down to 4 after it was like 8-7 earlier, but he's kind of been trapped at 4 ever since. So we'll see. There's still a few votes out, but Lasher firmly in the driver's seat, and Jerry Nadler might get his preferred successor. Looking at some other races
But
across the map, Kate Conley has won the primary to take on Mike Lawler in NY17. That's going to be one of the most important House races of the year. Democrats must flip NY17 if they are going to win the majority.
I
And
think they're
she wins
favored
pretty
to
easily.
win that. I think
Yeah,
that's
I think a lot of people consider them at least slightly favored. Although Mike Lawler will not be an easy opponent for Democrats. He has shown at this point to have a decent amount of crossover appeal in his seat, but in a very unfavorable environment, he's going to be in a tough fight.
especially with the. I think most people like credit how bad Hochul did 4 years ago to the reason Lawler was elected to NY17. And now that Hochul's more popular I think her approval is in the 60s now after it was only in the 40s range in 22. Uh, I think it's going to be tougher, and especially with a democratic environment, it's going to be tough for him. But he won in 24 when Kamala won his district, so don't rule anything out. But this is a brutal night for people who are not with the mayor of New York City. Storon is going to gain even more political capital after tonight.
Few remaining opponents. Now, of course, interesting questions do arise. Already seen people discuss maybe Dan Goldman for mayor in 2029, and that could certainly be an interesting case of one of these. He's made a lot of strides. He's also made some new opponents tonight. I think people can generally agree on that. And there are going to be some people who are looking for a chance to get back at him, but certainly a very, very much proves his theory of the case so far.
And I think out of all the left mayors in the country, I believe Zoran is the most popular. He's in the 60s, I believe, in approval.
Yeah, he might be. I'd be interested to see Michelle Wu's approval rating in Boston.
I believe Wu's unopposed right now.
Yeah, I no, she was up last year, but her opponent dropped out, and so she ended up unopposed. So DAC is now
Obviously,
close to a 2K vote lead.
yeah, I think we're close to when this might be close to callable at this point.
Yeah,
Once he's been
I'm
done.
waiting for like a single person I trust to call it, and no one's quite done that yet. But I feel like personally it's got to be pretty close at this point. Espilat has just not been gaining anything in any of these later batches. and her lead has increased. So I think at this point it feels like the best SPLOT could do would be like to tighten it enough to make sure it's not to get it so it's not called tonight. Now I will say I feel like the Bronx has slowed down on counting votes, so that would be the one like good positive argument for SPLOT. I think obviously there's less votes there than Manhattan, but like he could get a good drop from there still.
There's New York Times estimating about 1,400 votes left in the Bronx, and he's getting 60%. So let's say he gets 800 votes out of the Bronx, and she gets like 400. Um, that's only a net gain of 400 votes, and she's up by 2,000 now. So I don't think that would be enough, even if he matches what he. And we got there. And okay, yeah, this is it. That's it. Yeah, it's almost 4 points now. Wow, wow. Okay, I think it's. She just gained their big bats out of Manhattan. She now leads by almost
Let me do the math on
30.
this real quick.
She leads by about. She gained again. It's
Over 2,000 votes.
yeah. She was at 2,000. Now it's about 22. Yeah, yeah. This is. I think that might have been the dagger shot right there. Wow. So Zoran Mandani is close to having a 3-for-3 night in his home
Yeah,
city.
I'll be interested to see the state legislature results.
The fact that New York Times does not have that for state legislature is crazy. Even though they're
It'd
the
be
New
helpful
York City newspaper.
considering they're from New York. It'd be really helpful for them to provide some results. Antonio Reynoso has made his margin slightly less embarrassing over the last few minutes. He's not losing by as much as Dan Goldman now, which is considered an upgrade for him, largely because he's gained quite a bit in Brooklyn, where we'd expect him to gain. But he's still on track to lose by like over 20 points. And any type of loss of this size, considering that this race was considered to be a toss up by everybody, is kind of shocking. I'm gonna refresh a quick Twitter feed here.
I believe I still am shocked that we have not gotten the official call yet because her lead has only been increasing.
I think people are just waiting to maybe get another drop out of the Bronx. With them, I don't know how much the Bronx is going to be able to help him. I mean, the last drop there wasn't even that good for him, so we'll see. But I think once we get another drop out of there,
And we that Esplat and Goldman may not be the only incumbents to lose tonight. Can you quickly go over what's going on in Utah?
oh yeah, so we've got a couple you can't incumbents face primary challengers. I'm just going to be honest. I did not do as much research on Utah. It's been a busy few weeks. I've not was able to get to it. But so Utah redistricting, we got basically Utah now is a safe Democratic district based all around Salt Lake City. That's going to be an interesting primary. We think former Congressman Ben McAdams, who represented a swingier version of that district, is probably the favorite there, but we'll see when the polls close in about 6 minutes now, although Utah does take a very long time to count usually. Interesting Republican primaries in two of the three deep red districts. In District 4, Mike Kennedy is unopposed. Representative Burgess Owens has opted to retire to kind of, remove the kind of contest incumbent versus contest. So we've got challenges to Blake Moore and Celeste Malloy. Blake Moore, for whatever reason, and I have to do more research into this, seems to have gotten a lot of heat from local Republicans who kind of seem to have blamed him for the redistricting. I think generally, I guess maybe I don't know exactly what the future is, but it seems to be that he has in the past supported redistricting reform efforts, and now that that's finally hit Utah, there was a lot of grassroots anger at Blake Moore. So we'll see. He could still be favored, but certainly the activist right has a target on him, and they seem to have kind of he seemed if anyone if Utah Republicans are really mad about this new blue seat, it's very possible Blake Moore will take the punishment for that. Celeste Malloy, just kind of a vulnerable incumbent. She nearly lost in 2024 to a primary challenge. Now she faces a pretty credible primary challenger and former state representative Phil Lyman, who nearly beat Governor Spencer Cox in the primary in 2024, then ran an independent campaign in the general election, and got a decent amount of votes for a write-in candidate. So he's got a lot of name recognition and could certainly push her. So those are going to be two interesting races for sure. And I think both incumbents. I don't know why the New York Times does not have the Blake Moore race as one of its key races. That feels like a weird oversight, but certainly both races should be interesting. I think both incumbents lost at the convention in Utah, which doesn't really mean anything because conventions don't represent the voters in Utah necessarily, but still very interesting for sure.
And by the way, we just got a minor drop out of New York 13th. It didn't really move the needle much, but that if that says anything, it means that it's not even close to getting what he needs. And by the way, Blake Moore is part of House leadership.
Yeah, he's not super high ranking, but he is in there now. I think he took over for someone. Maybe I think he might maybe he took over for Stefanik. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. I'm
Moore
stupid.
took
He took
over
over
for
for Mike
Mike
Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah,
Yeah, he
I
got Mike
remember.
Johnson's vice.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he's generally viewed as a bit more moderate, and again, a lot of his support for the redis he supported the commission, which resulted in the safe district being implemented. The Utah Supreme Court upheld that as Utah Republicans tried to stop it. And he actually represents the first district that is now safe blue. He's running in the second district, so every Republican kind of had to shift. I'm sure Burgess Owens is not particularly happy with him either. Although who knows? Maybe Owens is pretty old, so maybe he would have retired anyways. But uh, as he retired to kind of avoid an incumbent v incumbent contest with Mike Kennedy.
and talk about Malloy. She actually won a
Yeah, let
close
me.
primary for a special election too.
Yeah, she's
So
had a
she's not
couple.
really a strong candidate. She's not a strong
She's had a
candidate
couple
at
close
all.
races. Her special election, yeah, in 2024, she won her primary by 176 votes. That was her first run. She's been in office since winning a 2023 special election, but she's faced some challenges. And yeah, Phil Lyman is a very credible incumbent. So we'll have to see. Sorry, not incumbent, challenger. Yeah, looking at the convention results, this is just a sign. Look, conventions are not representative of anything. They do not represent the voter base at large. So do with this what you will. Blake Moore lost the convention vote for Utah Republicans by 30 points.
Oof.
Celeste Malloy actually only lost. Celeste Malloy actually won it this year. She won it by 1 point, and I do think this might be informed that this is just a minor guess. There might be some anger at Phil Lyman, who ran a write-in campaign against Spencer Cox in 2024 after losing that primary. But still, Now, I will say quickly looking at the fundraising here, Phil Lyman has not raised a lot of money. Blake Moore's primary challenger has raised some. We'll see. Moore has put out a couple internals showing him up by a lot. There's no polling in the Malloy race. Both could be interesting, I would say.
Speaking of other races, let's quickly, before we get more results on New York, talk about Maryland. We got a couple primaries there that we're talking about.
Yeah, a couple House races in Maryland. I have not checked Maryland in a minute, but it looks like, yeah, so it looks like Adrian Bofo. I think it's Bofo. Adrian Bofo
Yeah.
has ultimately won. This is just a case of there was a lot of opposition to him, but the field just could not consolidate around anybody. You have four candidates getting at least 9% of the vote, and then, of course, Bofo himself. And he's just been able to break out into a big lead because of it, despite only winning 32% of the vote himself. This is the race to succeed Steny Hoyer, former House Majority Leader, has been the Democrats' deputy to Nancy Pelosi for 20 years before stepping down at the beginning of 2023. Yeah, 2023. And yeah, Hoyer endorsed Bofo. It benefited a lot from outside spending from AI PAC, from pro crypto groups. A lot of criticism levied towards that, including by Senator Chris Van Hollen, but he was endorsed by Hoyer, he was endorsed by Governor Wes Moore, he was endorsed by Senator Angela Alsobrooks, and Adrian Bofo will succeed one of the longest serving members of the House. Steny Hoyer took office in 1981 during the Ronald Reagan administration's first year.
And while we were talking, we got New York results. SPLAC gained only a 0.1% gain. So
Yeah,
horrible
slight gain for him,
gain.
but probably not enough. DAC clearly in the driver's seat, but we will have. I'm still gonna wait on calling this one. I still want to see a little bit more. I want to be quite careful with this.
Over in Maryland, we got a. It's basically what we had in Texas 32 in Maryland 6. A we have the former representative challenging his successor.
Yeah,
So
so
we
David
had
Trone. This has been a weird one. David Trone took office, served in the House from 2019 to 2025, retired in 2024 to run for U.S. Senate, lost that primary to Angela Alsobrooks, spent a ton of money in that primary. I think he spent over $60 million of his own money. He is the co-founder and president of Total Wine, which maybe if they have them around. I will say that when I was living on the East Coast, a lot of Total Wines. There's not that many out here in California, but lots of Total Wines on the East Coast. So he's super rich. Ran for Senate, lost during that time when he ran. April McLean Delaney, who, fun fact, her husband John Delaney served in this seat prior to Trone. He retired to run for president. He ran for 2.5 years. He dropped out before a single vote was cast. That's just how it goes sometimes. She took office in 2024. Now Trone wants his old seat back. They've both spent a ton of money on this race. The Trone obviously still very rich. The Delaney's incredibly rich family in their own right. David Trone has spent over $25 million of his own money on this race. I think McLean Delaney has spent about $8 million of her own money on this race. So it's plutocrat v plutocrat. Trone has gone after her really hard for voting in support of the Lincoln Riley Act. While Trone was no progressive in office, he's kind of used this as his distinguishing factor. And he's also run a bit of a misleading campaign. His campaign committee is called the David Trone Reelection Committee, which obviously he's not running for reelection because he's not technically the incumbent, but he only served 2 years ago. And if you're a voter who hasn't really been all that tuned in, you might be able to fall for it. So it's a close race. McLean Delaney does have a slight advantage, but still a lot of votes outgoing here. Maryland does not count super quickly.
Utah has just closed, but I don't think we'll
Mhm.
get results for a while.
We'll have to wait. Yeah, Utah's pretty slow.
What's going on with the Stefanik seat? I heard that the Republicans are running two guys that have been endorsed by completely different sides of the party in that seat.
Yeah, Republicans a pretty tough primary going into this one. Anthony Constantino, who is like a businessman backed by Trump, currently has a big lead over State Assemblyman Robert Smullen, who I believe was kind of the choice of a lot of the state party establishment. Constantino, bit of a pugnacious guy. I don't think he's particularly well liked by a lot of people, but he's looks like he's going to be the nominee at this point. He's got a pretty big lead, although there's still some votes out. Republicans will certainly be favorites to win this district in November, but if the year gets really good for Democrats, and we'll see, they've seen their lead decrease on the generic ballot a bit as of late. But if the year gets really good for Democrats, this is a plausible reach target for them. They did have it on the red to blue list back in 2018. So That'll be interesting. Democrats appear to have nominated Blake Genderbine. He was a dairy farmer who was always pretty heavily favored in this primary. Raised a bunch of money. I believe he spent some of his own money on this race too.
What about Grace Meng? We've heard that she's not doing good in her primary right now.
Yeah, Grace Meng kind of struggling right now. Now she has one that's been called for, but she's only up by about 14 points over Chuck Park. And this is an interesting one it's going to be interesting to see how Democrats handle this because this district went Biden won this district is pluri Asian American. It's about 45% Asian American, then it's about 25% Hispanic. This district NY06 most all totally in the Queens area. Joe Biden won it by 29 points in 2020. Kamala Harris just won it by just 6 points in 2024. So one of the biggest swings in the country. And it's going to be interesting to see how Democrats handle this going forward because Meng is a habitual overperformer. She won by 25 points, outperformed Kamala Harris by a huge margin. But she clearly has some issues on her left flank. Chuck Park ran an unabashedly progressive campaign compared to her. And so that's going to be interesting to see, does Zoran try and set his sights on flipping this district to progressives in 2 years? Or does he kind of hold back on that because there's some concern, is this is definitely a district where you would see some moderates say, well, if we nominate a progressive here, I'm not sure what's going to happen in a general election.
But obviously, 2024 has was a that's a bad year in blue states: New York, California, New Jersey. Like, so it's
To swing back to Democrats in 2026, but long term, it's a point of interest to see what's going to happen with those groups in a district that's heavily made up of them, heavily working class, and really did swing hard for Trump. I mean, outsized hard for Trump.
we got a little drop there in the 13th just a moment ago. Didn't move the needle
Really shift
much.
any results. Valdez up by 20 points, exactly 20 points right now. Lander up by exactly 32 points. I would say Valdez is probably going to finish under 20 points now, so not quite as high as her original margin, but obviously still far higher than pretty much anyone expected. Lander is going to win by, I would say, is almost certainly going to win by over 30 points, so beating even the very high expectations held for him, and we sit and wait for a resolution in NY13.
And what was crazy about New York tennis, the moment the votes came in, they called it for Lander because he was pummeling Goldman in Brooklyn, especially with the early vote. We just got more votes out of the 10th, and Lander is definitely going to finish above uh 30-point margin. He is actually about to win, probably will win 2-1, most likely. He gained in Manhattan. Uh, and Brooklyn's almost done, so you can't make this stuff up. This is just embarrassing on many fronts for an incumbent like to lose like that.
I'm going to slow down a little bit because I lost my voice a bit for a second there. Oh, New York Times just called it for Michael Asher in NY12. And yeah, Boris was able to cut it down, but just never quite got past the 4-point deficit he found himself in. Pretty good turnout there, 100,000 votes. By far the highest of the four key NYC races. But yeah, Michael Asher, Jerry Nadler's handpicked successor, will head to Congress to succeed him.
I heard
President.
something from.
Hmm?
I heard something about from Kornacki earlier that turnout might be the reason that if East Black goes down, it might be on turnout that gets him.
Jack Schlossberg with just 10% of the vote in 11% of the vote in New York 10. So not a great start to the political career of the newest Kennedy.
Should have ran in Massachusetts, man.
Mamdani has arrived at.
DDHQ has called it. DDHQ has called it for
That makes me less likely to call it.
DAC.
Call it.
And they're out here immediately calling it for Ben McAdams.
Oh, it's 86% and he's up. But wow, Ben McAdams with an absolute nuke. Holy cow. There was a lot of talk down the stretch here that progressives had failed to consolidate.
You told Rob? Wow.
Yeah, progressives had a lot of people were talking about progressives failing to consolidate here.
I didn't even realize.
But he's at 60%, so clearly it would not have mattered. Yeah, Ben McAdams heading right back to Congress. Not as many votes in either of the Republican races.
4 years ago.
Celeste Malloy has a huge lead. Blakemore has a smaller one. His lead is the size where he should be favored, but also where it could ultimately end up being close. I think Malloy should be fine, but we'll have to see.
Oh wow, Malloy's at 71%. Kennedy's at 60-40. 32% in the Malloy race, 15% in the Moore race. I think they both may be fine, end up being fine, but
yeah, there's more. Malloy should be fine. She's up by 40 points with over 30% in. I would figure she'd be. I'd figure. I'd figure he'd be fine, but it could get like close-ish.
I believe McAdams was mayor of SLC in the time between his two congressional stints.
I believe. Yeah, it was. He was mayor of Salt Lake County. I don't know what he's been doing since leaving Congress, but he patiently waited and jumped back in when he needed to, and now he will head back to Congress. There was a lot of opposition to him from progressives, and while fair, he was a very moderate Democrat during his one term in office. It was always going to be hard to beat him with just a massive name recognition advantage as one of the few prominent Utah Democrats of the last few years. And now we will wait and see if his seat survives more than 2 years, because certainly Utah Republicans will be targeting it for a while.
Yeah, they tried to pack the courts. They tried to repeal it. They tried everything in the book so far. So briefly, Dante, go over what we got next week. I think we got some interesting races next week.
Yeah, so Colorado on Tuesday. Now, some people will forget about it. Don't sleep. Louisiana Senate runoff on Saturday. Julia Letlow favored, but not overwhelmingly so against former state treasurer. Against not former state treasurer John Fleming. Now that Bill Cassidy has gone down in the primary, we'll see. Trump's endorsed Letlow, but some recent comments have made it seem like he doesn't really care now that Cassidy's gone. I don't think he's all that invested in this one anymore. And then Colorado, we'll have some interesting primaries. The Dem Tea Party is going to get right back on the wagon in Colorado 1, a Denver, deep blue district in Denver. Diana DeJet faces a serious primary challenge from Millette Quiros, a lawyer who was recently endorsed by Bernie Sanders. So that's going to be an interesting race. The hot primary for governor to succeed Jared Polis. A lot of people thought Michael Bennet, the U.S. Senator, would clear the field out when he got in. But he didn't. State Attorney General Phil Weiser has stayed in, and he has stayed close. John Hickenlooper, the other U.S. senator up for re-election, he said that he's running. He said this is going to be his last term. The former governor, in running for his second term as a senator, faces a primary challenge from State Senator Julie Gonzalez. We don't expect it to be too close, but we'll see. We'll see if Colorado is feeling some of this Dem Tea Party motion that's clearly been going on.
And we're just the guy is a close ally of Speaker Emeritus Pelosi, I believe. So interesting race there. Obviously, some big names have gone down in to progressives over the last few years. Crowley probably would have been speaker next year if he had beaten AOC in 2018.
Yeah, it's funny. We look at all the Pelosi
And
acolytes who retired instead of waiting their turn. Ben Ray Lujan and Chris Van Hollen come to mind. Even Javier Becerra was pretty high up in leadership before he, left to become California Attorney General.
And speaking of, the Republicans had that type of stuff too. Mike Pence, obviously, probably would have been the speaker if he stayed in Congress past 2010. And obviously, Joe Crowley probably would have became speaker, but now it's probably going to be Hakeem Jeffries, another New York Democrat. And obviously, people were like talking about the Tea Party. People were like trying to recruit someone to go after Hakeem Jeffries himself, and I doubt that Zoran wants, even though Zoran has just had an amazing night tonight. I doubt Zoran has political capital to take down the speaker, the probably the next speaker of the House, and so
Yeah, it's interesting to think what might have happened had Zoran endorsed against Jeffries. He did have a potential challenger in Chiose, really making a lot of moves about a run, but
Again, like I don't think Zoran, even though he has good capital, I don't think it's good move to go after the guy who's about to become Speaker of the House if Democrats win the House.
Well, I think it also would have stretched DSA a little bit thin. You know, that would have been 4 congressional races they're putting resources into. Not 4, actually, sorry. DSA never endorsed Brad Lander, but they 3 races, and they were putting so much into NY07 and so much into 13, especially down the stretch in 13 after Zoran came in for DAC. I just think it might have stretched their resources thin. Obviously, DSA now clearly has a lot of power in New York City, but
And obviously, their next target is probably Grace Meng. And obviously, they're, I believe, what
deal with the
they're going to go out.
electoral.
Yeah. I think, obviously, Richie Torres is a top target in mind for them as well. I'm actually surprised they didn't go
Pretty
after.
moderate.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they didn't go after. Uh, damn, I just went blank. Fuck. Uh, Latimer, and like I'm surprised they didn't go at. They might go after him next time too.
We'll see. There is. I'm sure some are tempted to like avenge Jamal Bowman, but his district is another one that's pretty tough for that style of politics. They really targeted. I mean, in NY13 and especially NY07, they targeted 2 overwhelmingly pro Zoran districts. Whereas Torres' district backed Cuomo, Zoran only won NY06 by like 2 or 3 points.
But obviously, what Bowman also did some self harm to his renomination chances too. The fire alarm incident
Yeah,
that was dumb.
his district also changed a lot in redistricting. It became much harder to win.
Yeah, I think most of his base went into the Torres seat, right?
But possibly he could have considered carpetbagging, but he didn't, and it was probably to his ended up being to his detriment.
Mondale Jones in 22 carpetbagged, lost to Dan Goldman, and now that seat is now going to be held by Congressman Brad Lander.
Well, and you look back at that race, Dan Goldman won a super crowded primary. He only got 25% of the vote in his win. And it seems like he didn't really ever expand his base beyond that. So you kind of think he might have been always pretty vulnerable to a challenge, and Brad Lander was happened to be a particularly strong one.
Yeah, and then with Ispa is very. This one is very earth shattering because he is a major part of the Hispanic caucus. He actually is the chairman of the caucus, right? Like I'm pretty sure he probably was going to get a major committee. Like Ispa probably was going to get a good committee chairmanship as well. So pretty big earth-shattering defeats here. Manhattan has both Manhattan and Bronx had completely stopped counting. It looks like we haven't got anything there for a while.
Because it felt pretty close to being able to predict and call it for DAC, but we weren't quite able to get there, and now it's kind of come to a stop.
It's completely come to a stop in most of NYC too. The last results from the 7th was 44 minutes ago. I think we are outdone in the 10th.
Yeah, I mean, we're about done in both the 10th and 7th. A few votes just came in the 7th.
What is actually the worst incumbent defeat? Like, is Goldman probably the worst incumbent defeat in
I
the
don't know
House
for
seat?
House. Well, and there's also a difference between like the margin an incumbent loses by and the percentage an incumbent loses by. The percentage an incumbent gets. So like a 1v1 race where the incumbent loses by like 30 points, but gets like 35% of the vote. Is that a better performance than an incumbent who runs in a three-way race and loses by like 20, but gets like 29% of the vote? Loses by a smaller margin, but because it's a three-way race, they get a lower percentage of the vote. It's a question of like what's the worst performance. I would argue it's the latter, but you know,
Obviously, we've seen Steve King, Iowa 4, Beanstra beat him by 40 points, I think, right? It was bad. And
lose by
then
a third amount, but he got like 30% of the vote.
obviously, I don't know about Kansas 2 in 2020, but Steve Watkins got in deep trouble late in that campaign.
Let's see.
All right, people have on Wikipedia have always changed it to it's at lost. They have always edited it. People are quick. NBC has called it. NBC has called it apparently for DAC.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go check and see. That was actually an abysmal result for Grace Mango.
Yeah, that's not great. She will face the challenger, whether it's a Mamdani endorsed one or not. It'll be interesting, but she will definitely face
Someone
another.
maybe towards the moderate side as well, because more moderate as well. Looks like we got a rematch in Maryland Governor. Dan Cox and Wes Moore going to go at it again.
Yeah, that was the result. Oh, no, I thought they called it. What did they call? Oh, damn. Oh, they called the NY21. They called that for Constantino. Thought for a second that had been an NY13 call, but it was NY21. Yeah, Maryland governor. Yeah, they've called it, projected it for Cox. That's what Moore wanted. He was running ads on Fox News attacking Cox before the primary was even over. Considering that they were only airing on Fox News, I think we can probably guess that that was a little bit of gamesmanship by the Moore campaign to get a more favorable opponent. Although I'm not really sure why they care. It's Maryland, you know how it is. But yes, he is going to win. Very few votes still in Maryland 6. They're only at 45% counted, so we're probably not going to know this one for a while. McLean Delaney has been up. She's been like narrowly but consistently leading, but there's still so much vote out there that you really can't like rule Trone out at all. Part of me wonders if a weak result for McLean Delaney, even though Trone is kind of a unique challenger, will get her another primary opponent in a couple of years. Although we'll see how that plays out. I know Trone is pretty unique in his ability to challenge her. Adrian Bofo still doing fine in the fifth district. It had been called for him for a while. Just very clear at this point that the opposition to him was way too divided to reach a conclusion. Chicken on Utah. I don't know if they've counted anything. They Oh, Celeste Malloy, just an absolute landslide win. Blakemore is going to be fine. He's 90% in. He's up by 16. So,
Oh, we
despite some
got a
interest,
drop here in New York 13. Uh, DAC just got back that 0.1% that she lost earlier.
okay, well, that's doesn't look like it was a huge drop, but yeah, she did go back up by a little bit. Actually, a net gain of 0.2 overall. Certainly still in the fight there. I don't know if anyone's called it outside
All
of
right,
NBC.
all right. So here's here's a Zach, the guy who runs VoHub. He retweeted a chart of how good the Zoran Slate has been doing, and it looks like they may only lose three three races that whole night. This whole night. Obviously, there's 4 Senate districts. They are only losing in the 27th district. And then in the assembly districts, they're only losing in 66 and 70.
And only one of those, only 70, is a DSA backed candidate. The other two are only backed by the WFP. So DSA is going to come pretty close to a clean sweep.
This is a huge night for the allies of the mayor.
Yeah,
Like,
certainly a statement performance from DSA. They feel like the most powerful political organization in New York City right now.
oh, whoa, Jessica Ramos lost?
Yeah, that was kind of expected. She was facing a lot of, ever since her endorsement of Cuomo in the mayoral race. Jessica Ramos, she's currently, it hasn't been called yet, but she's trailing by 11. So her district is SD 13 if you're interested.
She ran, right, for mayor? We
Yeah,
got
she ran
like
for mayor and sort of kind of quit on it to some extent. Not quit on it, but when it was clear that she was not going to win, she encouraged her voters to rank Cuomo, and sort of ended up just kind of campaigning for him. And it was a weird situation where she never officially dropped out, but was functionally like backing for Cuomo. And yeah, progressives put a target on her back after that. She faced a WFP endorsed challenger, and she is going down.
so. This is kind of a opposite of what went on in California a couple weeks back, where the progressives didn't do well. Uh, they came close in some and won a few, but this is definitely a much better night for progressives than it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I actually think progressives, their night in California got a bit of a bad rap. It looks like May Vang is probably the favorite, and California's seventh in November. They're going to have a very clean shot at Jimmy Gomez and CA 34, but certainly Tom Steyer falling short was a pretty high profile L for progressives, and a lot of attention on Sykot and Pelosi's seat that ultimately went nowhere.
Yeah, and Steyer fell barely short. I think he ended up not. He ended up falling like a point or two short.
He's about 2 points, yeah.
It's that night in California hurt, but tonight is definitely making up for that horrible night in California. And obviously, those races you were talking about are Dem versus Dem.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens, but Mai Vang finished over Doris Matsui in the primary first round of voting. Jimmy Gomez finished with a solid lead, but one of his weaker primary performances ever, and he's dealing with a couple of scandals right now that will probably make that race a bit closer. So it's gonna be interesting to see, but we have to wait till November to hear that.
And a couple of D-Triple-C endorsements lost in those primaries,
Yes,
especially in Valdez.
Jasmine
Yeah.
Baines going down in the Valadeo seat, and that would be a pretty notable progressive win. They rallied hard behind Randy Viegas, and it certainly looks like David Valadeo is in huge trouble come November. One of probably a must flip for Democrats, and it feels like they are very, very in a shot, have a very strong shot there.
And I think the only few questionable seats in California are definitely the Valdez seat and the old 48th. What was the ISIS seat?
That was
48?
that's 48. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
progressive loss. Amar Kampanajar did really badly, actually.
Yeah. But I think those are the only two races where Republicans could still have a shot at pulling upset wins. But I think they got destroyed in a combined vote in both races in the primary.
Yeah, I would expect Democrats to win CA 48 when it's all said and done. It was a marginal Harris district, but it was still a Harris district, and this is going to be a much better year for Democrats, even if that area of California is a little bit more Republican down ballot. I don't even know if that's going to be the case this year. It's been Republican down ballot the last few years, but in a year where you're trying to give a check on Trump.
Yeah. And especially with if you're Democrats and they're like you had a chance in the 40th. It was supposed to be a vote sync, but it was a minor vote sync. You still get locked out. Just not great. And then obviously in Maine, another HCCC candidate went down in the Maine 2 seat. Who is the DCCC chair? Is it still Dobini? And there we go. We got the AP call for DAC. The Associated Press has called it.
I got to reload my. Yes.
Wow. So that is a. If I'm Zoran Mondani, you go have a victory rap. 6 months into your term after toppling a huge dynasty in New York, you went in and consolidated more power and knocking off two adversaries of your movement in one night. You got another endorsement through. Again, it's DSA a better night here than it was in New York and in California.
Yeah, just a
But
massive night for the DSA and a massive night for Zoran Mamdani. Looks like he's going to go 9 for 10 looks like DSA is going to go 9 for 10 in the state legislature races, 3 for 3 in the Congress races, and yeah, political earthquake in New York City and a massive warning shot for for the Democratic establishment across the country. We've talked about it for a while, but the left has their banner night in 2026, and look, what this means for Democratic primaries, what this means for general elections are going to be two very different things. These are 3 safe blue districts. The real test for progressives will come in places like Maine with Graham Plattner. Will come in places like Michigan with Abdul Sayed. If he can win that primary and then go on to win that general election, it's a big moment for the left. But in order to really take over the Democratic Party, which has a large base of voters who really want to beat Trump, they're going to have to win some general elections and competitive seats. With that said, what I think we're seeing here are some very clear things, and that is that the Democratic establishment is pretty far out of touch with its primary electorate, and there are consequences to governing badly. There are consequences to losing touch with your voters and not being in touch with your district. I heard a lot of people give anecdotal stories about how Adriano Espilat did not feel like he was a very present incumbent. He had a lot of problems with various groups in the district, and you saw that come to a head tonight. And so there are consequences. The Democrats have a terrible approval rating among independents, among Republicans, obviously, and among the Democrats themselves. And we're starting to see those consequences come to play. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of years how this plays out. But the left has had a
Yeah.
banner night. They've been looking for it. They didn't get it, and we talked about California. They didn't get it in California. They didn't get it in Illinois. That was a really disappointing night for progressives, where they didn't really win any of their target races, despite having quite a few. So a couple of misses. They didn't get their big target seat in North Carolina. They've missed in some races, but Chris Rabb won in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago. DAC and obviously Claire Valdez, and to some extent Brad Lander tonight. And they're off to the races now. And we're going to see, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over these next 2 weeks. Big election in Colorado next week. In Colorado 1, that'll
Mm-hmm.
really be a kind of test, a momentum check for this outside of New York City. But there's a lot of reasons for the Democratic establishment to be quite worried right now.
Yeah, especially Chuck Schumer. He's up in 2 years. Everyone, people have been calling for him to step down. Like, it's if I'm Chuck Schumer, I'm kind of scared right now because, we've seen Chuck Schumer kind of after forcing a shutdown, which was popular among the Democratic base and helped the Democrats dominate in the 25 election night, going undefeated in the key races that night. He negotiated with the Trump administration time and time again, and this is what happens when Democrats think you are getting too kind of cozy with the Trump administration, or you're not present, or they don't think you're effective. It happened with Joe Crowley. It happened with Elliot Engel. It happened with Isblat. It happened with Goldman. It's New York has been a breeding ground of,
Oh,
if you fuck around, you're going to find out. And Crowley figured that out, losing big. Engel figured that out. And now tonight, Goldman and Isblat are into that category as well. And I don't blame their voters if you if you neglect the voters. There's a good chance that a formidable primary opponent is going to challenge you, and they're going to win. It it's been pretty obvious since the Crowley loss. Like Crowley losing, people called it a fluke. They called it a fluke when Angle went down. And now with Zoran
a fluke
in
that
his
later that
way,
year.
yeah, it was like, and it's not even just in New York. Was Murray Newman in 2020? Murray Newman took out, and
That was
then
Dan Lipinski, right?
yeah, Lipinski. His father was a longtime member of Congress. And same thing with Cori Bush. She took down another political dynasty. William Lacey Cray, his father, Bill Clay, was a longtime member. Lacey Cray was a longtime member, and they got complacent. Progressives pounced, and they lost. And if that wasn't like, and we just got our update here. DAC, I think, just expanded her lead again.
No, it was
But
actually that was actually a good update for SPLAT, but obviously at this point, too little, too late.
yeah, like progressives have had their flashes. They took down people like, again, with Illinois, we had Lipinski, who actually has left the Democratic Party. Like, he's no longer a member of the Democratic Party. Lacey Clay, him and his father represented that seat for almost a half a century. And then Elliot Engel, who was around since the Reagan administration, I believe. He was at every, he was famous for getting a handshake with every president at every State of the Union. Like, I saw that, and
Oh,
he lost.
he actually ended up breaking that streak for Trump. He wouldn't
Oh
shake Trump's
wow!
hand. Yeah, no, this
I
streak.
mean, that's
He,
fair.
yeah, you were correct. That streak was in place, but then he refused to shake Trump's hand.
Yeah, but again, like,
Still a
that's
cool
what
fact.
happens. Yeah, that's like, I saw that story back in when I first started getting into this space around the time where Obama, around the second midterm of Obama, is when I started getting into this sphere, and I saw that video. It's still up, but it was and then obviously he lost to Jerome Bowman. Do you remember that gaffe that Engel had in that
Yeah,
primary?
yeah.
Like, that was that's what happens when incumbents straight up just don't care about you, and that happened tonight. You said that's been maybe the case with Ispolat. Like,
I think the action Espillet's attitude down the stretch was not a good one. He did not, and looking at it now that he's lost, it's easy to look at what he was doing down the stretch and say, man, this was not a guy who thought he was going to win.
yeah, and apparently didn't, like, Ispolat's campaign do some get be some races,
There was a lot of
like,
yeah, there was a lot of Dominican versus Haitian stuff. It, you know, Adriano Espilat, Dominican member of Congress, one of the most powerful Dominican representatives in New York City right now, and so that racial divide became not racial, ethnic divide became very, very important in this race down the stretch, especially in Spanish language media, where there was essentially an accusation that DAC, who is a child of Dominican immigrants, there was essentially like this was an incredible. This was again, this like solely took place in Spanish language media. Adriano Espilat accused DAC. They're both are Dominican Republic, both are Dominican Americans. They essentially attacked her and accused her of being Haitian, and basically saying that they're trying to replace Dominicans with Haitians to try and take advantage of this like racial divide here. And it was pretty bad. It got pretty ugly. I think that behavior definitely turned a lot of people off down the stretch with Espilat, and clearly did not work, and clearly was made the tactic of a campaign that was probably losing this whole time.
yeah, just again, like we've seen gaffes, like, but just incredible night for the DSA. Like, they've had their big night that was promised, and let's see if they could follow that up with wins in Colorado, and then next week. I don't think I'll be live for that, but Colorado's a big test. We had big tests for them before, and this was a very big night. And then in August, obviously, August 4, the first Tuesday in August is always a big night. We got Michigan with Dr. Abdullah Al Saeed, and then we also have, like, that's going to be the test. Like winning in a Michigan, for example, this is going to be a test. Can progressives win in a swing state like Michigan? Right. So it's going to be interesting. I'll be live for pretty much the whole month of August, so it's going to be interesting. So with all of our key races called, I think that's where we're going to end it off here, Dante. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. Have a great night, and I'll see you all in the next one.
All right. See you guys later.